I used to think the space under my bed was empty. Not just empty, safe. A flat stretch of carpet where dust gathered and the occasional sock disappeared. Nothing more. That's what I believed, until the night I heard breathing. Not mine. It was slow, careful, controlled, and it was coming from directly beneath me. Before I tell you what happened, don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. All right, let me tell you this the way I tell it to my friends, because that's how it feels, like I'm confessing something that still doesn't sit right in my head. This happened in 2022, in a quiet neighborhood just outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Maple Hollow Drive, end of a cul-de-sac, the kind of place where neighbors wave even if they don't know your name. Two-story beige house, white shutters, clean lawn, nothing unusual. And it was just me living there. I'm not someone who scares easily. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or any of that stuff. I work remotely for a logistics company, so I'm used to late nights. That first sound happened on a Tuesday around 1:47 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone right after. It was a soft thud. Not loud, not violent, just something shifting somewhere inside my bedroom. I sat up immediately. You know how your brain is still foggy with sleep, but your body reacts first? That's what it felt like. I listened carefully. The house was quiet. No wind, no passing cars, just the steady hum of the ceiling fan. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood does that, completely normal. I lay back down. Then I heard it again. Not a thud this time, a dragging sound, slow, like fabric rubbing against carpet, and it was directly under me. I froze. My bed frame was low, but there was enough room underneath for storage bins. I kept 2 plastic containers under there, one for winter coats, one for old paperwork. I held my breath, and that's when I heard it. Breathing, slow, careful, not matching my rhythm. I reached slowly for my phone on the nightstand and turned on the flashlight. I didn't look immediately. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me didn't want to know. Finally, I leaned over the edge of the mattress and shined the light underneath. The bins were there. The carpet looked normal. Nothing else. No one. I actually laughed at myself. I checked the door. Locked. Windows locked. Everything normal. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep much. A couple nights passed quietly. Then it happened again during a heavy thunderstorm. 3 soft taps from under the bed. Rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up fast. "Hello?" I called. My voice sounded wrong in the dark. The tapping stopped. I got off the bed and crouched down, lifting the bedskirt. Nothing but darkness. I lay flat on the floor and shined the light fully under there. It looked empty, but the carpet, it looked pressed down in one area, like something heavy had been there. I went through the whole house that night. Closet, bathroom, garage, nothing. No signs of entry, no open windows. I didn't call the police because I had no proof, just fear. And fear sounds ridiculous when you try to explain it out loud. A week later, I woke up to find my bedroom door wide open. I always close it, always. That night, I made sure it latched properly. Around 3 a.m., I woke up for no reason, just a feeling. The door was open again, and in the dim light from the hallway, I saw something move across the floor. Not upright, low, crawling. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Then it disappeared out of sight. That's when I whispered into my phone and called 911. The police arrived within minutes and searched the house top to bottom. Nothing. No forced entry. No footprints. One officer looked under my bed and stood up slowly. He said the carpet looked compressed, like someone had been lying there recently. After that, I couldn't sleep in the bedroom. I moved to the couch downstairs. For 3 nights, nothing happened. On the 4th night, I heard it again, but upstairs, in my bedroom, a dragging sound across the carpet, like someone shifting their weight. I stayed downstairs until sunrise. I installed cameras after that. One in the hallway, one in the living room, one facing my bedroom door. For 2 nights, nothing. On the 3rd night, at 2:03 a.m., the hallway camera glitched, static for a few seconds. When it returned, the bedroom door looked slightly bent inward, not opened, just flexed, like something heavy inside had leaned against it. I stayed awake the next night, sitting in the hallway chair watching the door. Around 2 a.m., I heard movement inside the room, slow shifting, then breathing, not inside the room, beneath it, under the floor. That's when I remembered something I had completely ignored. The house had a crawl space accessible from the backyard. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The grass was wet from rain. The crawl space door was slightly open. I never opened it before. The smell hit me first. Sweat, stale air, human. I pulled the door wider and shined the light inside. Blankets, water bottles, food wrappers. Someone had been living under my house. Then I saw him, 2 human eyes reflecting the beam of my flashlight. He didn't attack, he didn't scream. He just slowly moved deeper into the darkness. The police caught him 2 days later. He had been entering through an unlocked basement window weeks before. They told me he'd been hiding in homes across the county, living in crawl spaces and closets. But one officer told me something I'll never forget. He said the man told them my house was his favorite. When I asked why, the officer hesitated and said, "Because you sleep deeply." I sold the house and moved to an apartment in Boise, Idaho. 3rd floor, no crawl space, no basement. I told myself it was over. Then, one night, months later, I woke up at 2:11 a.m. No sound had woken me, just that same heavy feeling, like someone was watching. I lay still in the dark, and then I heard it. From under my bed, 1 slow, careful breath, and 3 soft taps. Tap, tap, tap. I don't check anymore. I don't look, because sometimes what you don't see is worse. So tonight, when you turn off your lights and lie down, just listen carefully and tell me honestly, are you absolutely sure there's no one under your bed? The first knock came at exactly 12:03 a.m. It wasn't loud, it wasn't rushed. It was slow and deliberate, like whoever stood outside my door had all the time in the world. 3 steady taps. Knock, knock, knock. The kind of knocking that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that tells you someone already knows you're home. I remember staring at the ceiling in the dark, my heart beating so hard it felt like it might shake the walls. My house sits at the end of Maplewood Lane in Springfield, Illinois. It's a quiet street near Lake Springfield where nothing ever happens. That's why the sound didn't make sense. That's why it felt wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. All right, let me explain this the way I would if we were sitting across from each other in a kitchen at 2 in the morning. I moved to Springfield in late 2023 for work. I'm an insurance underwriter, nothing exciting. I rented a small 1-story house, 2 bedrooms, wooden floors, an old front porch with a broken doorbell. I lived alone. The first week was peaceful, almost too peaceful. I remember thinking how quiet it was at night. No traffic, no music, just silence. When the second set of knocks came, I sat up in bed. Same rhythm, same calm patience. I checked my phone. 12:04 a.m. I grabbed the baseball bat beside my bed and walked down the hallway. Every step sounded louder than it should have. The house felt different, like it was holding its breath. I stood in front of the door and listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no whispering. I forced myself to look through the peephole. The porch was empty. The streetlights glowed faintly on quiet pavement. I opened the door quickly and stepped outside. Cold air. No one there. I locked up and went back inside.
I was just starting to calm down when it happened again. But this time, it wasn't the front door. It was the back door leading to the fenced yard. 3 slow knocks. I froze in the kitchen. The backyard is enclosed. You can't just wander back there without climbing over a 6-foot fence. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice sounded thin. There was no answer. I called the police. They arrived within minutes and checked everything. No footprints, no signs of entry. One officer suggested it could be the wind. There wasn't any wind that night. The knocking didn't stop. It started happening every few nights. Always 3 knocks, always calm. Sometimes at 12:03, sometimes later. And then, one night, it moved to my bedroom window. 3 soft taps against the glass. My bedroom is on the side of the house where there's barely enough room to walk between the fence and the wall. You'd have to squeeze through intentionally. I didn't even look outside. I just lay there in the dark, staring upward, listening to those 3 taps echo in my skull. I installed cameras after that. Front porch, backyard, driveway. A doorbell camera too. The first couple nights showed nothing. Then, on the 3rd night, 12:03 a.m., the knocking happened again. I watched the live feed on my phone. With each knock, the front door physically shook, but there was no one there. No figure, no hand, nothing touching the door. I replayed it over and over. The door moved, but the porch remained empty. The police reviewed the footage and couldn't explain it. They suggested someone might be standing just outside the camera's angle, but there was nowhere to hide. Weeks passed and the fear changed. It wasn't sudden anymore. It became constant, like a weight on my chest. I noticed small things during the day. My porch light would be turned on when I knew I had turned it off. My backyard gate would be slightly open. Once my trash can was moved back beside the house, days before pickup. Someone had been on my property. Someone patient, someone careful. One night, I decided to wait outside instead of inside. I parked my car in the driveway with the engine off and the lights out. I sat there watching my own front door. At exactly 12:03 a.m., the knocking started. The door trembled with each hit. And then I saw something, a shadow near the porch column. Not detailed, not clear, just a darker shape against the darkness. Someone standing perfectly still, watching the door, waiting. When I blinked, it was gone. I ran to the porch, no one there. But when I turned the knob, my stomach dropped. The door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. I stepped inside slowly, my heart racing. The house was silent, too silent. And then, from behind me, from inside the hallway closet, came 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. My entire body went cold. I ran outside and called the police again. They searched every inch of the house. Nothing. No one. I left and stayed with my sister in Chicago for a week. For several nights, nothing happened. I started to believe maybe it was over. Then, on the 6th night, at exactly 12:03 a.m., there were 3 knocks on her apartment door. She looked at me confused and asked if I was expecting someone. That's when I understood. It wasn't about the house. It was about me. Police eventually arrested a man named Daniel Hargrove. He had been living out of a van. He used to work security at an office building where I worked years ago in St. Louis. I didn't remember him, but he remembered me. In his van, officers found notebooks filled with notes about my routines, times I turned off lights, how long it took me to reach the door, when I reacted to the window tapping. The knocking wasn't random. It was testing, measuring, studying. He wasn't trying to break in. He was learning how fear worked on me. When they arrested him, he didn't fight. He just smiled and told the officers he never once asked who I was. That sentence still echoes in my head. Months passed, court hearings, restraining orders, therapy. I moved again to another state, thinking distance would fix everything. Last month, I woke up suddenly at 12:03 a.m. There was no knocking, just silence. I lay there staring into the dark, trying to calm my breathing. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. An unknown number. A single text message. 3 words. Knock, knock, knock. Attached was a photo. It was my front door, taken from outside.
The first time I noticed him, he didn't move. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't shift even slightly. He just stood behind me in the bathroom mirror at exactly 2:14 a.m. And when I turned around, there was no one there. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. Let me tell you this the way I'd tell a friend sitting across from me at a diner late at night. This isn't some made-up ghost story. There were no floating objects, no supernatural creatures. Everything that happened could be explained. At least that's what I keep trying to believe. This happened in late 2024, in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, near German Village. I had just moved there for a marketing job downtown. The building was old, not historic, just old enough to creak at night and make you question every sound. I lived alone in apartment 3B, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a large mirror mounted above the sink that covered almost the entire wall. The first time I noticed him, he didn't move. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't shift even slightly. He just stood behind me in the bathroom mirror at exactly 2:14 a.m. And when I turned around, there was no one there. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. Let me tell you this the way I'd tell a friend sitting across from me at a diner late at night. This isn't some made-up ghost story. There were no floating objects, no supernatural creatures. Everything that happened could be explained. At least that's what I keep trying to believe. This happened in late 2024, in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, near German Village. I had just moved there for a marketing job downtown. The building was old, not historic, just old enough to creak at night and make you question every sound. I lived alone in apartment 3B, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a large mirror mounted above the sink that covered almost the entire wall. The first strange moment felt insignificant. I woke up thirsty around 2 a.m. and went to the bathroom. When I flipped on the fluorescent light, I caught my reflection immediately. But for just a split second, it felt like the space behind me in the mirror was deeper than it should have been, like the room extended further than reality allowed. I blinked, and it was normal. I told myself it was just sleepy eyes. A few nights later, it happened again. I was brushing my teeth, staring absent-mindedly at my reflection, when I saw something shift behind my shoulder in the mirror. It wasn't dramatic, just a shadow that didn't match the lighting of the room. I turned quickly. Nothing. Shower curtain still, door closed, silence. When I looked back at the mirror, everything looked normal. That's when the unease started settling in. Not sharp fear, just a quiet discomfort that wouldn't leave. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining heavily outside, the kind of steady Midwest rain that makes the world feel isolated. I woke up suddenly at 2:14 a.m. No nightmare, no sound, just that heavy feeling like someone was standing too close to you in the dark. I walked into the bathroom and turned on the light. That's when I saw him clearly for the first time. In the mirror, behind me, stood a man, tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie, his skin pale, his expression blank. He wasn't transparent or distorted. He looked completely real. He stood so close behind me that I should have felt his presence physically, but I didn't. I froze. The most disturbing part was that he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the mirror, as if he were examining his own reflection, or maybe mine. I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. The bathroom was empty, completely empty. The door was locked, the window sealed shut. When I slowly turned back to the mirror, I was alone. After that night, it didn't happen every day. Sometimes a week would pass without anything unusual. Then, exactly at 2:14 a.m., I'd see him again.
always behind me, always silent, always still. One night, I decided not to turn around. I just stood there, facing the mirror. He was closer than before. I could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the light stubble on his jaw. I whispered, "Who are you?" He didn't answer, but the corner of his mouth lifted slightly, a small, controlled smile. Then the bathroom light flickered once. When it steadied, he was gone. I installed a small camera in the bathroom because I needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. A few nights later, he appeared again. I stood there, staring at him in the mirror. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. On camera, I was alone, completely alone. There was no second figure, but I was clearly reacting to something. My body stiff, my eyes fixed behind me. At one point, I even stepped slightly to the side, as if making space for someone standing beside me. That's when the fear shifted. Maybe it wasn't the mirror. Maybe it was me. I went to a doctor, blood tests, sleep evaluation, even a psychological screening. Everything came back normal. No signs of hallucinations, no stress disorder, nothing. But the visitor didn't stop. One night, I entered the bathroom before turning on the light. The room was dark, but I could faintly see movement in the mirror. When I flipped the switch, he was there, but closer than ever, almost pressed on the inside of the mirror, as if the glass were separating two different spaces. And then I noticed something impossible. The reflection of the bathroom behind him didn't match mine. In his version, the bathroom door was slightly open. In reality, my door was closed. Slowly, in the mirror, the door behind him began to open wider. I turned to check the real door, still closed. When I looked back to the mirror, everything looked normal. That night, I reached out and touched the mirror. The glass was cold and solid, but for the briefest moment, I felt something press back. Not hard, just enough to make my stomach drop. I ended my lease early, and on my last night in the apartment, I avoided the bathroom entirely. I kept every light on and brushed my teeth in the kitchen sink. At 2:14 a.m., I heard a soft tapping sound, not from the bathroom, but from my bedroom closet. I opened the closet door slowly. The small mirror inside reflected the dark room behind me, and him, standing closer than ever. This time, he wasn't staring at his reflection. He was staring directly at me. His smile widened slowly, and his lips moved silently. I couldn't hear him, but I could read what he said. "You let me in." I spun around. Nothing. Silence. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee weeks later. No large mirrors. I covered reflective surfaces. For months, nothing happened. I started believing it was over. Then last week, I woke up suddenly at 2:14 a.m. again. My bedroom was dark. No mirrors nearby. I told myself it was just habit, just memory. Then my phone screen lit up on my nightstand. The front camera was active. The black screen reflected my bed faintly. I leaned over and looked at it. There were two of me.